Good morning, everyone. It's Cecilia. How are you all? Mwah, 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 mwah. It's so good to see you all. I was watching y'all coming in, some familiar faces, some new faces, and I'm so glad that we're here together. My team and I were just talking earlier. We picked this date um, before the new year. And we're just really relieved that it happened on this day, which is such a special day for us here in Minnesota, considering what's going on in our communities. It's an opportunity for us to come together and really start to think inward about who are we as leaders in this moment, and how do we show up in the ways that we want to be remembered by when we look back on ourselves in the future. So let me introduce you to my fabulous team, and some of them are with us in the room. So Melissa and I are the co-founders. I serve as the CEO. I'm Cecilia Stanton Adams, and I am joined by Michelle Perdun, who is our consulting fellow, and she will also be monitoring the chat and chit-chatting a little bit with me as well as we kind of riff back and forth and share our experiences around this topic. Lily Panameno, who is not with us today, is the social media marketing assistant that we've been working with. So it's been great to have her. And if you know me, you probably know Olivia, because she is my other half when it comes to Stanton Adams business. She is always there, keeping everything on track and connecting with all of you. So Olivia, why don't you give them a little wave so they know who you are? Awesome. Oh, perfect. And not a part of my staff, but has just entered the room, my daughter, Celicia, who I'm always glad to have in my space. So thank you, Celicia, for coming. Anyway, let's jump into it. I wanted to just share with you, you know, diversity, equity, and inclusion has gone through such a weaponization over the past year and a half, maybe 2 years. But I want to give you hope. We started our organization in 2010. And since then, we work with over 100 brands within government, nonprofit, and corporate spaces. And these folks may not be loud and proud, but they're committed. There are organizations that are still walking the walk, right? And doing what's really important. And so it's important that we remember we are not alone in this effort that we're in right now. We are all fighting for equity, inclusion, but most of all today, humanity, right? Let's remember our humanity. So let's jump right in and talk about why we're here today. And I'm going to get my little mouse working for me here. There we go. All right. So why are we here today? I created the Leadership by Design program because I knew that the old ways weren't working. I remember a lot of the old models that I would read about what it meant to be a leader. A lot of it was top down, it was hierarchical. It's you tell me what to do and I do it. I hear how I'm doing in my performance review. I get raises that I am really underwhelmed with, right? It's just been pretty consistent. Now throw into that hybrid, throw into that the digital era, AI, COVID, social unrest, political upheaval, right? And you still got to go to work, because I know I still got to go to work, right? And so the pace and pressure of leadership has changed. We're also dealing with fear, polarization, and fatigue. I don't think people have really gotten their full rest back since COVID. And that's not even if you had COVID. I'm just saying generally, right? How leaders show up carries greater weight now more than ever. And so this is why I think it's so important for us to come together around this topic in this new era of leadership. Let me be honest. This work is all sorry, my cat just kicked this. Can you not do that while I'm presenting? Okay, get him out of the way. All right, so be honest what's happening here, right? Now more than ever, we're faced with a crisis, right? We're faced with chaos, with social unrest. And for those of us in Minnesota, this is a re-traumatization from what we experienced back with George Floyd. And these things have been happening for decades, right? But never has Minnesota experienced such an overwhelming amount of violence from our own government. Beginning this work this past year and a half, we couldn't necessarily openly talk about this stuff because it was labeled politics. But what we have to remember is politics are people's lives. And by not talking about politics and making that okay, it allows us to stay silent about the most important things in our life. The things that you're seeing here on the headlines, and these are just a few, are things that our employees are dealing with and experiencing every day. So if you need a stronger business case than that, that's it. Whether we like it or not, our employees have this weight on their shoulders. And whether we like it or not, we as leaders have this weight on our shoulders, seeing this every day and wondering, am I doing my part? Am I standing up to who I say I'm going to be? Well, this is the moment that we actually get to practice that. So I created Leadership by Design because it built this idea of this premise of what an organizational culture could be. And because my work has been grounded in DE&I, this is all about creating a space that can be diverse, that can be equitable and inclusive. That doesn't mean one group or another. It means many groups coming together and being able to leverage each other's differences. So the class that I created is really built on the premise that culture is built on a foundation of clear values, aligned behaviors, and systems. So when we talk about the culture of an organization, we're not just saying the events that you do, right? We're not saying like, how do people feel in the lunchroom? Do people feel like they're getting great benefits? No, it's the entire system that holds your organization. And when your organization goes through crisis, like right now, times of testing, you will find out how solid those values, aligned behaviors, and systems are. It's designed on the premise that leaders are accountable for results and relationships, right? And leadership and models in the past have really focused on how do we get to those results? And I think for many of us in our companies, it's like results, get the outcomes. We need to see the bottom line. What's the ROI? And what we forget about that is at the center of those results are our people. I don't care how much digital systems, AI you use, people are still going to be at the heart of your organization. And so if you truly want to make that difference, you have to also lean into the relationships. Self-awareness and empathy are leadership essentials. We used to think of them as soft skills. No, they're essential skills. They're critical skills. They're the skills that's going to make the difference between your organization surviving and thriving. The other premise is communication has to be intentional, inclusive, and transparent. And what's happening in the world today gives us a perfect example of how our organization is equipped for that or not. How much is your organization talking about what's happening in the community? Are we afraid to talk about it? Are we holding back? Are we not saying the things that everybody else wants to say? Well, if the organization's not saying it, it sends the message that it's not okay to say. Right. The last thing here is psychological safety fuels innovation and performance, because at the end of the day, that's what we want as organizations. We want innovation. We want performance. This is why diversity is so important, diversity of thought. This is why equity is so important. But you don't get there without psychological safety, which means people feel safe to bring up not only what they agree with you, but also what they disagree with. We know what it looks like to have a leader that is surrounded by sycophants and this leader could be walking around with no clothes on and no one around him will tell him. Is that the kind of leader that you want to be? Probably not. If you're here, that's probably not the kind of leader you want to be. So really think about, especially in this time, how do you create that psychological safety on whatever it is that you're offering the community? Because best believe what I'm feeling in the community, I'm going to be bringing it to work. It's going to impact my ability to focus. It's going to be the difference between whether I actually take the energy to bring up this idea and share it with this group or just hold back because I don't want to deal with the trouble. Right. I created Leadership by Design as a 6 week cohort program. So, over 6 weeks, I bring a small group of leaders together and we focus on these six really important capacity building skill sets. And these are the skill sets that are essential for leaders as they move forward in this new generation of leadership. You'll have opportunity to learn more about this course as we go through. You'll see a QR code on the next few slides. That QR code can take you directly to the Leadership by Design course, and you can learn more about it. But today, I really wanted to focus on three of the concepts that are a part of the Leadership by Design course. And I thought that these three were most essential for us as we think about today, right? The first is integrity. How do we lead with purpose in times of chaos, in times of volatility? How do we use our emotional intelligence to connect with people? And how do we communicate and also move through conflict so that we're navigating what's hard? Because a lot of this is going to be hard. And if we shy away now, right, how are we going to continue to build that trust? Because it's in moments like this of crisis, of when you truly show up as a leader and people's memories are long. What do you want people to remember about how you showed up today? And look, I'm not lecturing to y'all. This is what I tell myself every day. And I don't always feel like I live up to the leader that I want to be. These times have really pressed me to think hard about who am I? What do I value? What is my moral compass? What is the line with which I will not cross? And we all have to answer that for ourselves personally, because we know collectively not everybody is going to have that same moral compass. And are we going to wait for the crowd to decide that it's time? Or are we going to say, nope, this is my litmus point. This is how I need to show up, even when times are hardest. So let's talk about integrity. Integrity is all about doing what we say, saying what we do, right? That lines up. And under pressure, it's so important because people watch you more closely as a leader. They don't listen to what you say, they watch what you do. They don't listen to what you say, they watch what you do, because we know that behaviors are the best sign of what you truly believe in and what you think matters. Teams also look to leaders collectively to judge organizational integrity. So if I'm in an organization and my leader is like, yeah, my leader has integrity, I believe that they believe in those values, but I look around at the other leaders in this organization and I see them making decisions that go against who we say we are as an organization. Well, that's your collective integrity as an organization. Does your organization have integrity? Only when leaders across your organization have alignment around what that means and how to show up, only then does your organization begin to have organizational integrity. Think about so much of the building back that is going to happen after George Floyd's murder, all the commitments that have been made by organizations. There is so much hurt in the communities right now from people seeing the business community draw back. And it's only gotten worse as we see the administration change and folks kind of leaning into giving up a lot of those commitments. That's integrity, right? It's when it counts. It's when it's hard to do that it matters that you're still doing it. So this isn't just Cecilia saying it, right? This is the research. And, we've been doing a lot of research behind the scenes to really understand like what is really working today. Well, Edelman's Trust Barometer is a great place to go to learn a little bit more about building trust. So when leaders are consistent between words and actions, trust increases. And when trust is there, people stop guessing. They move with more confidence because they understand intent. If I believe you have integrity, you know what? When you tell me, hey, we got to move, I'm not asking questions. I know you're telling me this because it's the right thing to do. It's going to be the thing that we need to do to get to that next stage. Does it mean I never ask questions? No, but it does mean when the time really matters for you to act, I'm not questioning. What do you really mean by that? What is your true intention in telling me this? So in Leadership by Design, we go deep into these topics and we really think about how does this apply to you as a leader? So here's one of the things that we'll talk about, and that's values. So what value feels most important to you right now as a leader? And I'd love for you to go ahead and drop that in the chat. Michelle is going to start, sharing some of those with me. But take a minute, think about what value feels most important. Don't give me 3 or 4 or 5. One. One. One of the things that I really thought about when all the things were going down with DEI, I was thinking, I still want to meet people where they're at. Well, guess what? I can do that work whether I'm scared, whether I'm feeling confident, no matter what, I can still meet people where they're at. And that's the lens that I can use when I'm thinking about how to best show up as a leader. So I might find myself going like, oh, I can't stand this person. Like, why can't they just get it? And then I have to remember that one value that I'm trying to live by, okay, they're in a different place than me. What's the best thing I can do right now to live my values? Meet people where they're at. That means I have to have patience. That means I have to have empathy for myself to give myself what I need so I can show up for other people, so that I have the cognitive energy and space to meet people where they're at. Right. So Michelle, what do you think? Does anybody share any of those values, or one of your values? I mean, you co-teach with me, and this is a really great topic that we love getting into.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to values, I feel like there's different ones that flex depending on the situation and the context involved. For me, what's calling to me is dignity, seeing that preschool child being detained by ICE, and then just the story of how they utilized him as part of their own agenda. It, Dignity is what really stands out to me. The human dignity in all of this, and just the way that everything is unfolding seems to really undermine how us as humans deserve that. What I'm seeing is really consistent with what you were saying. I'm seeing care, emotional intelligence, lots of empathy, transparency, communication.
Let's move on to the second one, emotional intelligence. And, I'm sure you've talked about emotional intelligence lots. You maybe even done some emotional intelligence training. But I want to remind you of some really important things that we sometimes forget. Emotions are data. They're not distractions. They're not this fluffy stuff that you can just let go away. They're not things that you can ignore, right? When you have emotions, they have to either get expressed in some way or they get pushed down, which then results in something else, right? Trust is shaped by consistency under pressure. When we're under pressure, it's a lot of it is about how are we managing our emotions. And that doesn't mean just like holding it down. It's how are we being honest about our emotions? How are we saying like, okay, I'm feeling this feeling in my stomach right now. I need to name it. It's fear. And I've never felt fear like this before. It's the willingness to call it out loud, right? Leaders set the emotional tone, right? They set the emotional tone. And whether you have an official title of a leader or not, I consider everyone that's here on this call a leader because you chose to come here because you want to make a difference, right? So leaders set the emotional tone, and regulation builds credibility. What I mean by that is when we're exposed to all of the things that we're exposed to, we become emotionally dysregulated, right? You probably feel maybe that uneasiness. Maybe it's in your stomach. Maybe it's in your chest. Maybe you start getting your head is hurting and you just don't feel grounded. You feel like you're all over the place. You can't focus. That's dysregulation. And sometimes we live in that thinking like, I'm the only one. It's just me feeling like this. Or, maybe I just have a cold or it's allergies, right? Like I have spoken to many leaders in the past year who, as we're talking, will start crying and will say, I don't know why I'm crying. And I say, you do know why you're crying. You're crying because you're being tested right now. Your emotions are being out of whack because you're watching things, you're seeing things that really test who we think, what we think about humanity and how we treat one another. That's why you're crying. It's not by chance, but we've gotten so conditioned to divorce ourselves from emotions, right? To not really spend time on them, especially if they're not positive feeling emotions, right? Many of you might feel anger. I dip in and out of anger all the time. And you know what? I know what it feels like. And I let it come because I know that that's the way my body processes the things that's going on. And if it didn't process it that way, I would be worried. I'd be wondering, like, do I have a moral compass? Because all of this is fine with me. If it's not sitting right with you, it's just information, it's data. It's telling you something is wrong, right? So pay attention to that. So, what does the research tell us? So, LinkedIn in 2024 did a workforce learning report. The report highlights that employees are significantly more likely to stay, perform, and engage when their manager demonstrates empathy, emotional awareness, and consistency, especially during periods of uncertainty and stress, right? Empathy. Imagine, think about yourself when you're really stressed out, right? And you're around some folks, and you might have that one person that goes, "Hey, I notice, you seem like maybe you need a minute, a beat. How's things going? No, how's it really going?" Right? And if it's somebody that you trust, you might go like, "Yes, yeah, I'm not having a good day." Right? And that person can make that space for you. That's empathy. That doesn't mean I know exactly how you feel, but I can make space for you to feel what you feel and it be okay. That's what people are looking for, not for the perfect answer. They're looking for that space to be human and for it to be okay. So, one of the things that we like to share in Leadership by Design is the emotions wheel. And I like to share, like, I use this all the time during COVID when my wife and I were sheltering in place. Because let me tell you, when you're around one person all the time, locked up together, there's emotions happening. So, I remember for a time I would have this up on the refrigerator, and we would have a magnet. When we woke up in the morning, we would put the magnet on whatever we were feeling in that moment. So I could be like, okay, well, she's feeling anger right now. I might want to give her a minute. Or I might say, hey, I noticed you put that you're angry. Talk to me about that. Like, what's underneath that? Because if you kind of unpack it, you might find, well, I'm feeling not really mad, but I'm feeling a little just distant from things. I'm feeling distant from, this particular situation. Okay. Or I'm feeling threatened, right? Maybe I'm feeling hurt because of something happened. The closer you get to identifying that feeling, the closer you can get to the solution, because the solution for feeling distant is different from the solution for feeling hurt, right? And when you know you're hurt, now I can do something about that. Now I might need to soothe myself. Maybe I need to get in my warm blanket, get in my bed. That's my thing. Well, that's my thing for everything. But get in my warm blanket, turn on a show that makes me feel good, right? And soothe myself. That's okay. We're human beings. We're made to have these things, but we're given so many solutions to be able to give ourselves what we need. Are we feeling embarrassed, devastated, furious? All of these things are human emotions. When we don't want to hold on to them, when we don't want to face them, right? What happens is they stick within us and then they come out in ways that may not be healthy, right? I don't know if anybody can relate to this, but I would love to have you maybe throw some emotions in the chat. What are you feeling right now? And there is no emotion that is wrong in this situation. One thing that I learned, there's an organization called The Collective, and they bring Black and Brown communities together to really help them, build community and really become empowered in situations like here. And there was a speaker that shared that as human beings, we can hold both sadness and joy. That blew me away because all that time I'd been forcing myself to have to be one or the other. Like this stuff is happening out in the world. How can I be happy when something good happens in my family? Right? Like, how can I be both? I feel like if I'm enjoying myself in anything, if I'm finding any kind of happiness, that it means that I don't realize or I'm not paying attention to all the horror that's happening in the world. But know that the balance of having both sadness and joy allows us to persist. It allows us to keep going when things are really, really tough, right? And that's what we need to do, keep doing, especially in times like this. I say a lot of times now, the best thing that we can do during this environment is survive, right? We're surviving this because we will be here after this, right? Once you feel like, yeah, I'm surviving, how do you thrive? How do you continue to thrive even during times like this, right? Conflict and communication. Because we know when pressure is high, when emotions are high, when people are having differences of perspectives, that is ripe for conflict, right? And yet, how good are we at conflict, y'all? As a state, Minnesota. I know there might be some folks from other states, but I'll tell you, in Minnesota, they don't say Minnesota nice for nothing. It's like we like to be nice. We like to preserve our relationships. We don't often want to push back or make waves. And that feels safe, but what that doesn't do, it doesn't allow us to get deep. Now, think about a relationship that you have, a deep relationship. I'm sure you have had some conflicts with that person, right? Maybe some really tough ones. Maybe you have numerous ones, right? You don't get a deep relationship without going through those things because what's on the other side is what strengthens your bond. And we're often too afraid to go through the woods, the forest. So we never get to see what's on the other side. We never get to understand what it means like to feel that depth of connection. That happens a lot with things like race. As a country, we want to talk about it. We want to have the conversation, but are we willing to go deep? Are we willing to hear the things that we don't want to hear? Are we willing to bring the mirror up to ourselves and not point at what's wrong in the other, but what is wrong in me? What have I internalized about this? Because when I can set myself as an individual free, that's when I can connect with others. That's when I can lift others up. Okay, you got me at the pulpit, honey. Let me get back on track here. All right, so avoidance is still a leadership decision. So if we think, oh, I'm just silent about that, oh, I'm just gonna, no, that's a decision that you've made. So is that really the decision you want to make? Unclear communication creates misalignment, right? People are on different pages. Eventually, that will lead to conflict of some sort. Conflict grows when meaning isn't shared, right? Have you ever had a conversation with someone, y'all think y'all are on the same track, and then something gets shared that you're like, wait, hold on a minute. Wind that back a little bit, because I don't think we're talking about the same thing, right? And sometimes it's a good thing, but sometimes it's like, whoa, like I totally didn't see you coming from that perspective, right? And so making sure that we're moving along in our relationships, right? That we have shared meaning. What is this that's happening right now to us on our teams? What is the shared meaning that we have on our teams about what's happening? Is there a shared meaning? Have you even connected with others to even know how they make meaning? That's a place to start. It's not an answer. It's not saying this is what's right. Is what does this mean to you right now? Addressing tension builds trust and momentum. Addressing tension builds trust and momentum, right? Because it allows you to regulate. right? When you're holding it in, because it's like, oh, there's that elephant in the room. I'm spending so much energy trying not to talk about it. But when it's put out on the table, it's almost like a, all right, let's unpack it now, right? And now you've built some trust and you can move further faster. So, what does McKinsey say? McKinsey shows that leaders who address conflict directly and communicate with clarity are more likely to maintain team performance and trust during periods of uncertainty. Avoidance, on the other hand, slows decision making and weakens alignment. I mean, that makes perfect sense, right? Like, think about the leaders that you look to, right? Do you want them to be the ones that are going to kind of be like, well, a little bit of this, and now I'm telling you a little bit of that? Or do you want them to communicate clearly to you so that you know exactly what they mean, right? Do you create that space so that folks can really understand what's the meaning of that? Sometimes we interpret questions as being threatened or you're questioning my authority when it's maybe just people trying to figure out, okay, I want to get in your mindset. I want to really understand how you came to that point. We got to get comfortable with digging in and understanding those things because that's what's going to bring us to that common place. It doesn't mean we will agree on everything, but we will at least be able to find a common purpose forward. So when I think about communications and conflict right now, I think about this change curve. And those of you who've been in my classes before, we've shared this because it's so relevant today.
Yeah.
Change doesn't happen and we just automatically get it. So you can apply this to, we're introducing new technology change in our organization, right? Or you could be like, hey, ICE is coming out here and, there's a lot of violence happening in my neighborhood. There's going to be these same stages that you're going to go through. Shock, right? That shock might be like, I can't move. Like, I just can't believe. Denial. Well, that was an isolated incident. Well, maybe it was because of this, or maybe because of that. Frustration, anger, because you want things to just stop, but you can't make them stop. Depression, because you're going to feel like, oh my God, like this is horrible. Like, why is this happening? Then experimentation. This is the part that we have to lean into, right? Because when we get through those hard and difficult phases, we will get to the experimental phase. That experimental phase in Portland when they decided to put on those blow up animals, right? And walk through the streets, right? Like that was an experiment. It was like this violence is being rained upon my city. And what are different ways that we can respond? We don't want to obviously create more chaos in our city. And part of it is like, hey, look at us. Like, we're not violent people. Like, we're not causing trouble. We're actually out here just being people. That was an experiment. Decisions, right? Once you start to experiment, you start to go, okay, I can make one decision that is going to help me move a little bit closer to feeling like I'm getting this or I'm making a difference, right? Then you get to integration. That's when you're really starting to feel some momentum, right? And you're really starting to say, okay, this is the new normal and this is how I have to function. Right now, we have to figure out our new normal from the last new normal. Because what we're living under right now, we know at least another 3 years, we're going to be on this roller coaster ride. So whatever we're doing right now, is it sustainable? Mm-hmm. Right? Can we stay at this level of stress every single day? No. So we've got to really understand where we at in our emotional responses, because where we're at is going to impact how we show up. Now, how does this connect back to conflict? Think about your teams. Think about the people that you're leading. Think about your families. Where are they on this change curve? Most likely, they're going to be in different places, right? And when you're in different places, that means you don't have a shared meaning. And when you don't have shared meaning, you have conflict. So you might have people on your team that are really frustrated and others that are in denial, right? That's a mixture right there for conflict, for people to feel like, what do you mean nothing's going on? Or why are you trying to explain away what's happening? Right? Because they're in denial or maybe still in shock. So knowing this as a leader, right? How do you become more cognizant of the spaces that your team members, that the people that you're around, your friends, how do you become more cognizant of where they're at? Right? So when you know where you're at, you can give yourself what you need. Now I can be of service to others. Right. And a lot of times when people are in shock and denial and frustration, they need someone that's in that experimentation, right? Who's made it to the other side to say, you know what? Here's what you can do. Here's what's going to make you feel better. Here's what I did, right? Help people to understand that they're not alone in this. No one is alone in this, right? We've all gone through all these stages and we will continue to revisit these stages. So I've shared with you three of the concepts that I think are so important for us, no matter where we are in our leadership journey, to really stop and reflect and bring into our sphere as we're thinking about how we want to show up today. So if you think these particular concepts are important, I'd love to know, where are you learning these things? Where are you able to start grappling with these real issues of leadership? What venues and spaces do you have to unpack the dirtiness of it? Right?
Yeah.
The when I get up one day and I'm weepy and crying and I'm like, okay, I need to talk about this today. Like, where do you go where that's your trusted space to do that? That's why I created Leadership by Design, because I knew leaders needed spaces to work through the hard stuff. And I've designed it in a way that people learn, right? Leaders don't just learn, all the complicated stuff right away. You have to start with yourself. So the first three lessons are really focused on unpacking who you are as a leader, because the more connected to your values you can be, the more authentic you can show up. It doesn't matter what's happening in the world, the better you're going to feel about your contribution to it. Because I can't control what's happening in the White House or what's happening with ICE. What I can control is how I show up for myself and for others. These lessons allow us to pause and take the time so that we're actually proactively acting versus reacting, which many of you might feel right now that you're doing, right? Feeling that reaction. So, if you love this and you want more of this, or you know of people who really need this kind of support, and like I said, this is a cohort program. So the beautiful thing about this class during this time is you get to come together with a small group of folks from different organizations and really bond around a time where lots of folks are struggling with these things. So, we do a lot of worksheets, activities, tools that they can apply right away. And then the next week we come back together and we talk about what happened, right? In the last session of Leadership by Design, we actually talked about real world issues, right, Michelle, as they were happening. We would get
Yeah.
on a call and be like, okay, y'all, let's take a moment to unpack. I mean, it's been kind of crazy, right? But it has been great to come together around this. So for those of you who are in attendance today, there are two things that I want to offer you. So you will have the reduced price of $19.99. If you or someone someone in your company, on your team wants to register for this course, and if you are interested, by midnight, if you actually reserve your seat, so there's no money down, payment isn't due until March 1st. So if you want to hold your seat, no obligation, you can do so within, by midnight, and you'll get a free coaching session by me. So I'm really excited to do coaching sessions. It's a really great opportunity to get one-on-one with you and talk about what's really happening in your life and how you can directly create a plan for meeting those needs. So if you reserve your seat by midnight, you'll get that free complimentary coaching session. It's no obligation, right? So you can go to the website, fill in the registration, and we'll hold your name, and then we'll follow up with you. If you feel like, yes, I want to go to this, but I don't know if I'm going to have the financing. I don't know if my company is going to be able to pay for it. Go ahead and hold your seat. It's no obligation. So long as, we'll contact you, and by March 1st is when you make your final decision and where we'll set up payment. Payment options are varied. So if you want to do something more than just one payment, we can set that up as well. So I've shared a lot with you all today. And most importantly, even if you're not registering for the class, what I really want you to take away is the value of really challenging yourself with those questions. And hopefully you've got the worksheet that was put into the chat, and they'll put it in the chat again so that you'll have it. There are several links in there. So one of the links is directly to the slides. So if you want to look back at the slides and everything that I've shared, if you want to use some of the tools with your team, that's exactly what Leadership by Design is about. Folks can learn the tools and then actually use them. You're also going to see a link to resources for those of you who are in Minnesota and want to take a more active role with advocacy. So you'll see things in there like your rights. Actually, Michelle, do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about those resources that are in there?
Yeah, so the resources range from being somebody, we all are advocates in our own way, but we do it with different options. So they range from how to be a supportive person behind the scenes all the way to being in marches and rallies and being a leader in your community. So there's resources on how we got here. So kind of a retroflection on how we got to this space and time. I know many people I've been seeing on social media, people have been saying, why Minnesota? We are just over here minding our own business. And for some reason, they also decide to come to taunt the winter people during winter. So it kind of goes into explanation of why Minnesota, but it also shows different ways for you to how to engage in rallies, how to be a community observer. And they're from different resources across Minnesota too. So there's some DFL information on the salute process if you are a person that would like to navigate and keep track of ICE activity, or how to be an active participant with the activity around immigration in Minnesota. So many varying options for you, and it's really definitely a plug and play with what you need in this space and how you want to contribute.
Awesome. And just a note on all of those different opportunities. Sometimes we feel like we have to jump in the deep end. The best thing that you can do is think about, what is my talent? What's my gift? What do I do well? And how do I use that to do good in the world? Right. So for me, I'm not a social justice person in terms of going out and protesting. But what I do is I teach. I love to learn what's going on. I like to read all of the articles, distill it, and I like to be able to share it with folks. And so doing more of it, right? I'm doing healing sessions. Those are the ways in which I'm showing up by giving my gift to the world. So how can you give your gift to the world? I want to thank you all. And for those of you who have to hop off, thank you so much for spending time with me. And if anyone has questions, we'll stay on. And have a great Friday, really doing some activism, spending time with family, doing the good work that we need to do here in Minnesota to fight the good fight.
So we do have one question.
Yes.
So we have the question from Jaslyn. And I feel like it's a multi-layered question, and Jasmine would be a great candidate for that one-on-one coaching you offered. So Jasmine is wondering, what happens when addressing tension doesn't build trust in the relationship?
Yeah. And part of that might be, how are you having that conversation? Sometimes when two people are having a conversation, one person might be coming from an emotional standpoint because it's personal to them, right? They have some specific lived experience. So it's pretty close to the heart. where someone else might be having a rational conversation, like, no, this is the law and this is what we need to be following. Well, now we're having different conversations. And that's going to be really hard to build trust because everything that that rational person is saying feels callous to me because I'm thinking about it from an emotional space. And if I'm in the emotional space, that person who's thinking rationally is like, they're all over the place. They're just letting their emotions make their decisions, right? They're just not on the same page. So, number one, first of all, have the cognitive space to be able to meet people where they're at, right? If you're feeling angry or sad, depressed, you're probably not going to be able to meet someone where they're at if they're in a totally different place, right? Like I can talk to folks who don't believe racism exists, but when I'm really, really stressed and I'm really feeling emotional, I cannot because I don't have the bandwidth to do it, right? But when I do have the bandwidth, what I do is I ask questions. Tell me more about why you think that. What are some of your experiences? And truly open your mind to be curious and not judgmental because what we often learn is that the people believe the things that they believe because of what they experienced, right? And I can't tell you what your experience is and vice versa. So to make the connection, to build trust, it means willing to go the distance to understand what was your journey like that brought you to this thought process. It may not mean that you're going to change what you believe, but it may mean that you understand how they got there. And that's the next step towards trust. That's a great question.
I'll just
Cecilia,
come off mute to say thank you
Yeah.
because that answered it for me. I'm probably more the rational one. So when you broke it down like that, I was thinking like, oh yeah, which one am I? In this
Exactly.
particular situation that I'm thinking about. But whether it's work or a personal relationship, I feel both can apply. So I appreciate
Yes.
this. Thank you so much.
Thank you for coming, Michelle.
oh, see, I just want to say, like, you're such a master at what you do that as you were saying what, because like I was looking at the question, going like, "Ooh, how would I answer that?" You did it gracefully, and I was also like, "Oh, this is week 2 and 3, so emotional intelligence and conflict and communication." I'm like, you didn't even know that, but for those that are wondering, kind of like maybe how does what Cecilia just responded with fit into the coursework? That is definitely aspects from emotional intelligence and conflict and communication that Cecilia masterfully explained and did like a very nice, concise way of doing it.
Thank y'all. Thank y'all, Michelle. Other questions? Well, I hope some of you want to join us for Leadership by Design. Michelle and I co-teach that. And it's just a wonderful time and experience. And you walk away with lots of tools, resources to really meet the moment today. If you want to set up a discovery call or talk more about maybe other things that you need support with, feel free to email me or to reach out at the website where you'll find my information.